This conversation is about being confident about using our brain power to find solutions to the challenges that we face. So solution thinking, whereas you think about other people who will suggest we go and march, you go and protests around the world, there's a lot of protests. Strategists are solution thinkers. And this is just me. So let's talk about strategy. What makes success in the world are the people who control the world. And the people who control the world are the producers and owners of products and services. The producers and owners of the products and services. The companies, the corporations that produce products and services are the people who control the world. The people who work, the people who provide the functionality, I call us the 99%. So we're going to use 1% for the controllers and 99% for the rest of us. We spend our lives reacting to the decisions being made by those people who are leading the world. And these people operate with a concept called corporate strategy. And strategy is the direction and scope of an organization, which is you, that achieves competitive advantage to that organization through its configuration of resources, the way you put your resources together in a changing environment to meet the needs of markets and to achieve stakeholder expectations. So in other words, there's strategy, which is products and services, and then there's stakeholder expectations. The line that connects us to our customers, the line that connects us to meeting human needs is called strategy. So strategy says that you must have a vision of where you want to go. So having a business, having a plan, having a pattern, having an approach is what the V says. What is my vision? So the first thing we've got to do in all our business activities, as we look out into the external environment, into the marketplace, we ask ourselves, what is my vision for myself for the future? And when you have made that established that objective for your business, then you are able to reverse engineer what resources you want to have. So when we establish what's our vision, where do I want to go in the next 5 years? We are the budget of Trinidad and Tobago, I was just presented, is the first budget in a 5-year cycle. We've completed a 5-year cycle, there was an election, so now we have a business cycle for another 5 years. Where are you going to be in 5 years' time? Here's some of the questions I want you to think about. When you establish what your vision is, then you know what your mission is. Your mission is to succeed. Your objectives is to put the elements in place that will ensure a pathway to success. And your strategies are the things you will do to connect your product, your service, and yourself to the world. And the tactics are the things you do every day. So corporate strategy, which is the heart of your competitiveness, is supported by strategic thinking. And strategic thinking is the dream that you have, the imagination that you use, the innovation and creativity that flows from the infinite through you is part of your strategic thinking, where it asks us to analyze what's going on, not emotionally, but clinically. And when you analyze the world around us, you identify the sources of opportunity. You also understand the threats, but you are able to find your pathway through the forest that will take you to the future. So strategy is a diagnostic way of thinking. That diagnostic way of thinking helps you to establish your direction. Where am I going? What am I going to do tomorrow? The world around me has changed. But in every change, every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. And our mission for sustainability, for us to remain competitive, for us to remain dutiful, disciplined, and ready for action,
Aye.
we have got to apply our strategic thinking. That is what is going to keep you in alignment. So we are saying that the first thing to maintain yourself into the future is to apply the elements of strategic thinking, apply the principles of corporate strategy. So when you look at your future, you say, what are my options? One of the things you must be prepared to do is to change yourself, change your organization. In other words, if what you were doing isn't making sense, and let's look at what's happening around the world. The hotel industry, up to 2019, the hotels in Trinidad and Tobago, the Hyatt, the Hilton, were all active ecosystems of human activity. Today, they're empty. So what does the hotel owner do? Do I continue in the hotel business? These are the options. Do I close my hotel down? Then the building remains capital unutilized. Is there another purpose? Can I repurpose my business? So one of the things that all of us have to think about is not trying to bring back the old time days, to try to remind ourselves about Carnival and what Carnival used to be. We will tell our grandchildren about that, what Carnival used to be in our days. But the Carnival of the future will be virtual. So, and when we recognize those new situations, is when we can review our options so that we could change ourselves, change our business operation, retool our skills to be in a new position, to be in alignment with the needs, the production needs, and the success performance metrics in the new market economy. So strategy connects your life today to tomorrow's world. I want to say it again. Strategy connects today's life to tomorrow's world. So you need to know what you want to do tomorrow, what you want to be tomorrow, and that directs your conscious choices today. And because it's solution thinking, every challenge has a solution. Every problem has a solution. And what we do as business owners and as people who want to be employers of labor, when they come to the office of the CEO, they come for a solution. And we can't be reactive. We can't be waiting to see what's going to happen, then we respond. We've got to look at the trends, my friends. And look at the trends in the world. The world economy is contracting. Businesses, airlines are packed up. In other words, the value system that was driving the world up to 2019 is now obsolete. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen. We are living in an obsolete economy in Trinidad and Tobago. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Minister of Finance, made the point that other countries were operating at over 100% of GDP. In other words, they're spending more than 100% of what they're earning. That's what put Barbados in the IMF hand. And he made the point that our economy had contracted by 6%. So when my minister says we are 80% of GDP in terms of our debt to equity ratio, the truth is, it's not 80% of 100, it is 80% of 94, because the cake has reduced and it continues to reduce. So if we sit down and understand that our country economy is obsolete, we're looking for oil, and the price of oil was set at $45, for example. But why is it so high still? That's because Venezuela oil is off the market by sanctions. Iranian oil is off the market by sanctions. So if you're looking at supply and demand, they have reduced supply by sanctions to keep the price up. So when we say $45 a barrel, we are operating on the fossil fuel era, which is now behind us. The world is transitioning to the digital market, which is being the digital era, which is now being driven by renewable energy. BP, an example of how one has to change. BP, an oil company, is now moving out of oil and moving into renewable energy. You know why? Because renewable energy is the emergent market. It's the new future. It's where we are going. Why is the government selling out NP and selling out gas stations? And the answer is very simple. If we were allowed to import electric cars, NP is already obsolete. The only reason why NP is still around in terms of the terminal point, you know, growth, maturity, and decline, is because over the past 5 years, we imported a lot of gasoline cars, which has a lifespan of about 10 years. So we know that we'll have 10 years of cars driving around that need gas. But Holland has already stated by 2025, they only want electric cars in their country. So the idea of me buying a gas station is not an opportunity. It's an opportunity for those who can make back their money within the next 10 years. That's the business case for those things. Understand that NP is obsolete. Understand with solar power being introduced into your homes and your roofs makes tea and tech unnecessary. And these are just elements that shows you how the solutions to our future are right there when you look at the new technologies that are not only emerged, but are now rising to take their place in the world of the new digital market. In other words, we've got to make choices, my friends, to invent the future you want based on the laws of consequence. The laws of consequence says what you sow is what you reap. But what strategy does, when you take the time as we are doing today to go through these elements of thinking, it gives you that confidence to know, listen, I am going to sow good seeds today because I understand I need to go and study and change my skills. Because if robotics and artificial intelligence and these things are now driving the world, then I've got to get new skills. I've got to prepare myself for this new future and be part of the new future. So sustainability, that's the next point that we were making. Strategies and tactics for business sustainability. But what am I trying to sustain? I'm trying to sustain my life. So when we talk about business sustainability, we talk about business continuity, we want to just divide the two concepts. To sustain is to sustain myself and my employees and my family. But to continue in business or to continue living and earning, that is where those are the two streams. One is to sustain what already exists and to build into the future. And the other one is to continue in a particular industry or in a particular place. But I want to put it to you today, my friends, that we need to be prepared to change, because sustainability means you got to change with the times. Continuity means you got to adapt your business to the new timing. So let's talk about continuity. Business continuity, work from home. That's business continuity. You're working from home, but the business continues. Business continuity, you put all the protections and the risk management in place to cater for COVID-19, because you don't want them to shut down your business. That's business continuity. Business continuity is maintaining your staff levels and encouraging your people to be more capable and improve their capacity. But business sustainability is to maintain your fit between your concept of the business model, with the changing market environment. In other words, if you don't change with the times, you become obsolete. And if you become obsolete, you're not sustainable. So business sustainability is based on the decisions made by leaders. And today I'm speaking to you. the leaders of business, the leaders of your family. Yes, you don't have a business, you might say, but you have a family. You are a mother, you are a father, you are a brother, you are a sister. That means you are in a space to influence positive change. So these decisions is about maintaining organizational alignment. But when we talk about alignment, we got to look at the organizational structure, because business models in the past were built on buildings. For example, you have an office. Today, the structure is what? Virtual. People working from home, and you now have virtual offices. That means the physical structure is leaving us, and we are going into a virtual structure for everything. In other words, there are people in Trinidad who are answering phones for people who are making calls in the first world. There are people in Trinidad who are doing accounts for companies that are in England and America. In other words, the new structure of a digital world means that Port of Spain has many buildings that are not up for sale because people are moving out of offices and moving into their homes and creating their home structure. So these decisions, for us to be sustainable or to have business continuity, we got to pay careful attention to the structure that we are going to be putting in place, because that impacts on our competitiveness, it impacts on our costs, and it most important, it impacts on our confidence to meet the change in market conditions. So for us to be sustainable, we got to be adaptable. Are you prepared to change yourself and your business to adapt to the new realities that is facing us around the world? Do we have the mindset? Because what drives business is the confidence and attitude that comes from you recognizing your own uniqueness, your own difference, the difference between you and that other person, that gives you the confidence to say, I can do this. But with adaptability and the right attitude, you've got to build your capacity through new education. Be prepared to retool yourself, because the things that you learned yesterday are no longer wanted or essential today. And when you are able to get that capacity, continuous improvement, that's how you build sustainability. Your capability to action. Conversation, old talk, I know plenty of people that could do that. But when it's time to action, we've got to be capable to action towards our future, to understand the environment, to understand our resources, and to take the quantum leap. Sustainability and continuity, you must be prepared to jump into the unknown, because the future is unknown. Because today we talk about quantum computing, where information is being processed on a quantum computer 10 million times faster. So a very important part about capability and sustainability is to be able to jump, get up, jump to the future, not cry, complain, and be dragged to the future. You got to jump your business over the competition. You got to jump your capacity over the competition. You've got to be number one, because that's the only place you could choose to be. And when you choose the number one position, then you want to maintain your competitive advantage, promoting your brain power by doing what? Producing content, that products and services that people want. So you ask yourself the question, is the business that you are part of today, I have a job, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a teacher. In other words, we have, what you say after I am defines who you are. But ask yourself, are there substitutes to me? Is the job I have still relevant in 5 years' time? Or am I part of an old something that of which I must adapt from? And how could I take my knowledge and share it and produce, because technology is driven by content. All this thing about Zoom and everything, what drives it, what drives the television is programming, content. And for us to be sustainable, we've got to be able to meet changing customer needs. Now look at how customer needs change. And one of the best examples is Amazon. Amazon said, listen, I'm going to be the retail store for the world. So when we couldn't go into Port of Spain to buy things because of COVID, you could buy it on Amazon and have it brought to you. So customers' needs are changing. People no longer want to go in a bar and drink rum. That was. And even though some people say, well, the bar should open back. If you keep people away from bars for 6 months to 8 months and get them in new habits, those bars wouldn't have the turnover to maintain themselves. They will naturally go out of business. Why? Because they're not meeting changing customer needs. So therefore, when I tell bars, you all got to come up with a new way to do things. So therefore, every person in today's world, as we face the future, supposed to be thinking, what new products I could come up with? They say, necessity is the mother of invention. So now I could innovate, I could invent. I could use my creativity. Let me use my imagination. Because what we are facing is called creative destruction. I want to introduce you to that term this afternoon. Let me say it again. Creative destruction. Creative destruction is when new technologies replace old ones, and the people who are the old ones lose their businesses. My father told me once, he said when the first Model T Ford landed in Trinidad as a car, all the fellows on horseback, all the people who were doing horses and mining horses, and went down to the governor's house and asked him to ban cars because it's going to affect their business. How many of you remember donkey carts around the savannah that are now Mazda cars, Mazda pickups? In other words, creative destruction is when new technologies come in, just like a whacker. Long time a man would cut grass with a cutlass. Now it's a whacker. And the whacker now come with blowers. In other words, there's new technology that changes the way we do things and makes products, systems, in technical approaches obsolete. So what's a business? We talk about business. A business is an endeavor, an activity. But what is important, I want you to remember, people say, I want to own a business. You don't own a business. A business is a legally independent ecosystem which provides value by producing goods and services at a price which provides cost benefit or profit. So first thing I want you to understand, when we talk about our business, we have, as the managers, we have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to make the decisions that will drive this business, but we are actually employees of the business. When you say I own the business, you have a position as a shareholder. So I'm the shareholder of the business, which is the person who put out the capital, right? Whether sweat capital or cash capital. But the business is an independent ecosystem. And when we understand that, we see that we have a responsibility to lead, to direct, to manage, to coordinate, to communicate, and to put this business on a footing that's aligned to the needs of people. And to do that, a business is product multiplied by price, multiplied by volume. And today, businesses are facing a drop in volume, a drop in turnover, where their earnings is reducing, their cash flows are reducing. And I'm telling you, when you go to the malls, people are moving out the malls. Why? Because their earnings cannot meet their turnover costs. They cannot meet their break-even points. They cannot pay their rent and pay themselves. But you know, many of the people who moved out of the malls now put their inventory in their garages, and selling on Facebook. So in other words, they had the product and they could sell at lower prices because they don't have to pay that level of administrative overheads. And in a business, total revenue must always be greater than total cost. So when a government is telling us that we've had 10 years of deficits and that today's budget is $16.7 billion cost over revenue. In other words, you are spending $16.7 billion more than you're earning. Then, now remember, governments don't do actuarial accounting, they do cash flow accounting. But when you do actuarial accounting, it goes down to your balance sheet, and that deficit remains. And what the deficit says, if it continues for a business, it says that the shareholders have no value. So capital is owed to shareholders. And we as the officers who act on behalf of the firm have to build wealth. But I want to tell you this, my friends, wealth is in your balance sheet. When your total assets are greater than total revenue, that difference is your net asset value. You take your earnings and what do old people say? What do you do with your money? What you do with your money is to convert that money into assets, which is where your wealth is measured. So a lot of people believe that making money is making earnings. And I'm saying to you today, no. Making money is how you convert earnings to assets that will put you in a place, even if you started working for money, that puts you in a place where the money works for you. And remember, wealth is generational. It takes you 30 years to pay for a house. So we've got to protect our wealth and by succession planning, because strategy is a 100-year plan. So the crucial element is the organizational fit to the trends in the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and ecological environment. But I want to add, there are 3 elements there. The M that you see, the M is the new way of managing business. It's called systems management. You don't manage the business anymore by simply going there. You now have surveillance cameras, you have smart systems, you have artificial intelligence. All these things changes the way we manage. The I stands for investment. Today, look around the world and see where investment funds are going. It's going into Google, it's going into technology base, it's going into space exploration, it's going into robotics, it's going into artificial intelligence, it's going into distribution systems, it's going into education, it's going into, in other words, the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of Trinidad and Tobago are now purchasing computers for every child. That is 200,000 computers that have to be purchased. Somebody going to make money. And the D that you see there is 2 things I want you to pay attention to. The impact of disease on the human population in the world. COVID-19 is just one example, but it's dengue, it is H1N1. Every time I turn around, I hear some story. But the amount of hospitals in Trinidad, maybe that's their plan. And the second one is debt, DEBT. So we are in a place where countries like America, they owe $23 to $24 trillion. Can those countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean right now with having no tourists, can those economies pay back their debt? Or do they have to stop and make the business model changes? So when we look at what is a business and how do we get our business to work, we've got to understand a business as an independent ecosystem that has you as a leader to ensure that the product by price, by volume is positive, that total revenue is always positive over cost, and that we are wending our way through the forest of the external environment, which is described broadly as the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and ecological space. So the national budget is presented by the Minister of Finance. But for those who read the manifesto of the PNM, they will be aware that the manifesto of the PNM came up, the voters voted, and now the manifesto of the PNM is now government's policy. And it is that policy that feeds into projects that impact on economic development. So there's a policy framework that said this is where we want to go. So the government, as a political party, presented their vision for tomorrow. And based on that vision, they established their policy framework, and then they allocate resources to deliver. So the Minister of Finance, in delivering the budget is a methodology to allocate resources to achieve the strategic plans established by the government within the policy framework. This presentation we listen to allows each one of us to identify the opportunities and threats that will face us and our businesses, including the trends, consumer trends, policy trends, and the changes which have been mandated by the government for which our organization must respond to survive and grow. Remember that. The strongest survive, but the strategic thinkers and planners grow and prosper. The budget establishes the economic space. In other words, the government of Trinidad and Tobago as an ecosystem is spending $49 billion. How much of that is going to reach you? That's the only question you've got to understand. And when the minister provides his budget, he provides his budget with the budget documents, review of the economy. And I am inviting you all to get copies of those things. The review of the economy, the PSIP, which is the Public Sector Investment Program, the Supplementary Public Sector Investment Program, which is all the activities going to be run by the state. So you know all the projects they're going to do. You know all the money they're going to spend. And because all of it is public. But when you do an analysis based on your mission, based on your vision, based on your skills or vocation, you're now in a position to place yourself where the water running so you could get something to drink for your family. So these are some of the highlights. And I want you, as we're going through this quickly, to say, how does this affect your business or you? So I just run through some of the highlights to show you how the world is changing. Property tax is a law, and I invite everybody to read the law. Don't talk about, oh, I don't mind paying the tax. Don't get into that. Read the law first, because what that law does is introduce a new cost into the future. You are living in a home that you've spent 30 years to pay for, and now you are going to pay a percentage of the rentable value of that home. So you're living in your house, but you're paying a rent to stay there. You're paying the government, or you're paying the state a price to stay there. So look at the cost into the future. How many of us are able to have our properties in our names? How many of us have properties in locations where the rentable value is so high, you know with your pension or with your present income, you can't afford it? TNTech rates, electricity rates are going to go up. Water rates are going to go up. These are companies that are already running on government subventions. Fuel subsidies to be removed, all that's cost. The NP stations for sale, that includes allowing those people a higher margin to recover the investment for the properties that they're going to be purchased from the government. Look at what's happening to retirement age. Every government is facing the issue of pensions. Pensions is a key one the pensions is a key cost on the consolidated fund. And around the world, governments are struggling because of low tax revenue to pay pensions. So one of the ways of solving that, especially for national insurance, is to increase the pensionable age and let people work longer. 500 million for agriculture. The government is not doing that because they love agriculture, because around the world, All the fires and the earthquakes and the floods and these things have damaged agricultural output, where food security is a big challenge in many countries as we speak. So we need to invest in local foods, and we need to get our people back to eating breadfruit and cassava and yam and things that are produced in our country, because you can't afford to import it. Our supply of US dollars is now lower. When we stop hiring in the public service, that's the first sign of a downsize. What's the first thing you do when you want to downsize? You say, stop, we hire nobody else. But we just went through 6 months of non-essential performance. So every permanent secretary knows which department have people that she needs and who is not essential. And when the government introduces the digitalization in a stronger way, in other words, if I could pay online, I don't need a cashier. So this thing, when you go to the licensing office, cashier close, them thing gonna done. So I want you to understand, as the government retools and resets and restructures its business model, the hiring of people becomes unnecessary because they can be replaced by new systems. Now, income tax moved to $7,000 a month. You're not paying tax more than $7,000 a month. And what people have to realize is that most of the people work for less than $7,000 a month. So what you do, because of the inflation rate, which the minister said is 1%, but because of the real cost, if you go in the grocery, you would see what the real cost is. Therefore, you are putting more disposable income, but that doesn't mean that your purchasing power has increased. The amount of money you have could increase, but your purchasing power is actually decreasing. Anybody who goes in the grocery now will understand what I'm trying to tell you. 45,000 students to get MiFi devices. What does that mean? That means that the whole country is going to have access to the internet. The internet is going to be expanded. What does that mean? It means that buildings are going to work and working. In other words, if you think the schools are going to open, you're wrong. Online teaching is the new way to do it. But when that happens, the people who drop in children in the school have no job. The people in the school cafeterias have no job. The people who are the crossing guards have no job or no purpose, right? In other words, the buildings have now become obsolete in the purpose of education. The concept of a school, long time, old school. So there's going to be a new use being put to some of these buildings. When you expand the internet, you also get new types of jobs that are now going to be there. People to fix the internet, people to put up the cell towers. Those are the kind of people we need. The highlights talk is intended to reduce the consumption of foreign exchange. So we have to find new ways of earning foreign exchange because the energy sector is no longer happening. Right? That means we have to buy local, we have to produce local, because what people want to buy is locally produced goods. That is what gives us our competitive advantage. Not for me to produce what is being sold in somebody else's country. Let people come here for Babande, for example. Let us put Babande in a bottle and sell it out to the rest of the world. That's local. The duties on cars were put up. Why? Because we have too many cars in the country and cars are drained on foreign exchange, and the cars we buy are obsolete old gasoline engines. VAT and luxury foods. All these things are designed to stop the vanity of Trinidadians and let them go back to what do I need money for. The VAT waiver on construction material for approved building projects. I just want to remind you that there's an airport to be constructed in Tobago for $1 billion. There's a hospital being constructed in Port of Spain for next $1 billion. There are new overpass that's going to be done going up to Twin City area, right? We have several buildings. police stations and all these things going up. So what the government is doing is, in wavering on approved building projects, they're actually reducing the cost of those buildings. Think about that. That's not a giveaway. That is an attempt to bring buildings in at base cost, not base cost plus VAT. So that's because in other words, on $1 billion, VAT could be $125 million. You could save that by letting it go. Then you have the stamp duty as being reduced. Then you have tax allowances for businesses who are investing in other businesses. So there's a reason one wants to go forward. National Economic Zone. But I want us to focus on these three things here. Aluminium, which we thought was forgotten, but there's a Alutrend or Alutech that is promoting aluminium products in Trinidad. Medical marijuana, I was happy to hear the minister say that, because we had a thing on TV where we talk about oil and gas economy, if you remember. The scrap iron industry is a big one, because waste management is the biggest business in the world. The biggest business in the world is the recycling of waste, from cell phones, computers, electronic waste, and the scrap iron. We have a lot of iron running around this country, but the cars park up all about. Taxes removed on digital equipment, because the government is promoting people to have devices which will connect them to a system where we can find them. Then you have police patrols. The construction industry is going to be going through a new housing program, and then new medical facilities are going to come online. Sandy Grande Hospital, Arima Hospital, right? The Couva Hospital now become active places. So when you look at the allocations, you'll realize these allocations under each heading represents, my friends, the market for us to access. If the government is going to spend 49 billion, he given Tobago 2.1 billion, education getting 7 billion, how much of that is coming to your business? What product or service can you offer to partake in that amount of spend? That's what is important. Revenue is 41, up from 34. This year we only made 34 billion. But we say next year we're going to make 41. I have no disrespect to the Minister of Finance and what he says. Because I'm saying that's the money you're going to collect, and this is the money you're going to spend. As a business owner or as a person who's interested, I must put myself in place to benefit from that spend. So the economic trends. What are the changes that are going on in the world that's affecting us? The economic reset of the world is taking place, friends. In 1918, there was the Spanish flu. 8 million people died. But in 1918 is when they established they broke up the Ottoman Empire, and they established Syria and Iraq and those countries. So it was 100 years ago when we entered 1920, we entered a time where the war was finished and the industrial age began with vehicles in the United States. What happened in China is that the Chinese Communist Party came in July 1921, and they had a 100-year plan to be the #1 economy in the world by 2021. They don't have to go for elections. They have a leader who is there for life. Russia changed their constitution. Their leader is there for the next 15 years. In other words, the Western world is in a conflict with the Eastern world, and the Eastern world with their brand of socialism, authoritarian rule, and the use of technology. That is where they are the ones who are running to take over the world. Western economies are being destroyed by a biological weapon, and the impact of disruptive technologies. Look at around and see how technology is changing. So what we have is a new stay-home economy. Who is benefiting? All the persons who are distributing and supplying goods. The TT Post, the FedEx, Right now, my friends, we are in the transition space between the industrial age and the digital age. They need to understand the new world order. They need to understand this new world order, which is driven by laws, the rule of law, monitoring and surveillance systems, technological applications, artificial intelligence, and borderless markets. In other words, when you go online, you could be talking to people in any part of the world. When you are selling online, people could buy from any part of the world. There's no borders anymore. And we are heading to the new world, which is space. Space, the final frontier, is now part of the ecosystem of business in the world. When you speak to SpaceX with Elon Musk, when you listen to Virgin Galactic, you begin to understand that while we are sitting in Trinidad and we are complaining, people are preparing themselves to land on Mars in 2022. And not only that, Elon Musk is promoting the tunnel applications to connect underground cities. So the idea of planes coming back, we are doing tunnels now. We are going to the underground world. Just think about, there's a tunnel that drives from England to France under the channel. So yes, there are tunnels that are already part of underground systems. And these are the changes we are facing. For us to identify and things to make our business sustainable, what do we have to do? We have to identify new markets based on product development. We have to focus on our invention, our ability to invent new products like Angostura. We have to be innovative in the way we do things and understand changing consumer behavior, understand new consumption patterns, the new business situations, the application of new technologies, and most important, substitute systems. Let's remember that. People are saying, I don't have to go to the groceries can be brought to me. Substitute systems. For you to be able to sustain your business, you've got to develop a proper marketing plan to connect to customers with your brand, which must be identifiable. How many of us are building a brand? How many of us are called by our correct names? And we've got to be able to be sustainable. We've got to identify the staff, the skills, the resources, the technical competences, the knowledge, the reputation to support the value chain of your organization with the partners in the supply chain. Because one of the issues is your supply chain. Hold on. Right. So that's business sustainability. For you to have business sustainability in this new economy online, the online economy, the electronic economy, the digital economy, which is the government is promoting, we've got to find our customers in the digital market space. We've got to understand the distribution systems that operate through online activity. We've got to look at our pricing models, which is based on the purchasing power of our money. Remember, money fluctuates in value. Then we got to look at finance. Now, financial literacy is something that we don't pay attention to. But these are some of the key things you need to look at. Return on capital employed, doing proper cash flow analysis, making sure you understand your payback period for every investment, pay attention to earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, and ensure that you have a net profit after tax. Quality assurance is the next one. Product reliability, otherwise people want their money back. Establish alliances and joint ventures with other partners in business, which is called mutually assured benefit, MAB, mutually assured benefit. At the end of the day, you've got to become a strategic leader where you communicate to your people, you manage your organization, you maintain ethics and integrity, and you promote consistently towards competitive advantage. That means that your culture of your business must be based on merit, supported by performance management, managing the media, that's all the media, social media, ensure that you demonstrate respect to everybody and emotional intelligence in your decisions. And the last one, but not the least, is the management of your data. Cybersecurity is a big one for business sustainability. You don't want nobody to thief your identity. For business sustainability, we've got to understand the following things. In other words, strategies and tactics for business sustainability in a changing market. The first one, the key value drivers. You've got to know that the key value driver of your business is your business model, which must be aligned. There are other value drivers, but that's a key one. The key success factors are the markets that you have identified, the customers who you're holding on to, and your ability to manage money. Your ability to manage money. Your ability to manage money. Not somebody else manage your money. Not some accountant doing your money. You've got to be able to make the decisions that will increase value for yourself. Because an entrepreneur is a decision maker. An accountant is a person recording what the entrepreneur just created. So finance literacy is the ability of an entrepreneur or any individual to create money that accountants will count. You're going to have the key resources, your human resources, your technical resources, and your finance resources. And you can't have finance resources if you have no assets. What are the key assumptions behind your strategy? One is project-based management. You've got to manage scope, cost, risk, schedule, quality, resources, and the most important one is stakeholder expectations. You can't want to start a business and produce a card that says I'm managing director, marketing manager, and boss. When you create these vanity type expectations, you end up carrying the business at a greater cost than it can be supported, and you end up losing your business. Your key challenges that you face, what are the key challenges? Solution thinking, risk mitigation, and this one I want to stop and share with you, persistence analysis. Persistence analysis. My friends, to face the future as we are doing today, to be sustainable and to be continuously growing, or even staying alive, you've got to have perseverance and persistence. You can't give up, because to give up, get depressed, get stressed, then you just fall by the wayside. But the race is not for the swift, it's for those who could endure to the end. And the end is the end of your life. Once there's breath, there's conscious choices, we can all persist and achieve our dreams. The strategic technologies is all the new technologies, the online this, the Zoom that we need to understand and apply to our businesses today. So business sustainability is based on our key value drivers, understanding that, the key success factors, what are the key resources that you need, what are the key assumptions behind the strategy, and what are the key challenges that you're going to come up with that you will address and succeed from. The key performance indicators is the last one. It says that smart, everything got to be smart, right? You got to be specific in what you want. You can't ask God for a beautiful woman. You got to be more specific than that. So performance indicators for your life and for your business begin with having specific targets and objectives that are measurable, that are achievable, that are realistic and time-bound. Time-bound means you got to schedule everything you do. Get up, plan it, and get going. And when you do that, things will be safe. It will be suitable, acceptable, feasible, and enduring. In other words, if you want to be safe and be sustainable in your business, the tactic says you got to be smart, specific with what you want, put the measures and performance indicators in place, establish achievable and realistic targets, and put a time to it. So strategic thinking, which is the key element in sustainability, confidently answers the questions we started with when we started our discussion. Where am I going? Point your fingers to, that's my strategic direction. What am I going to do to get there? Product development, market development, and effort. Who will support me? The banks, who have $12 billion right now, in case you didn't know, in liquidity. Investors, my family, and I want to put in the family again, not just human resources. My family, which is my key ecosystem. What's the point in working for 30 years and your succession planning is not defined? Who are you going to hand over to? Who you going to hand over the big house to? Who you going to hand over the big business to? We've got to prepare those people. Anthony Sabga was chairman emeritus, and he had his son Norman, and he trained his son as he has moved on and moved out. His son takes his place. Business continuity is based on generational planning, succession planning, where your future is defined by those you plan to take over from you. Very important. That's what other people do. We've got to do the same thing. So having the right resources and stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? Your stakeholders are your shareholders, your staff, your suppliers, your customers, the government, yes, government is a stakeholder, and Mother Earth. And when you look at that, those people, that all your stakeholders and those who will support you become part of organizational development. You've got to develop that organization to be adapted, to be aligned, to meet the needs of markets today, not yesterday, today and tomorrow. Can I be successful? Can I be successful? The answer is yes, yes, yes. But to be successful, we've got to research, do our market research to understand customer and human needs. We've got to read all the journals to know the latest positions on technologies, techniques, and managerial competencies. We've got to have knowledge in the industry that we choose to be our vocation, our investment. And then we must make informed decisions. Our choices, when made from an informed decisions, must be proactive. We must anticipate the future and act towards it. We are not reactive. We are anticipating. We are planning. So we look into the future because of our vision, establish a plan where we want to go, and we get into the water, or we get into that ring to be competitive and prepared with project planning, prepared with project investment, prepared with the brain and the confidence that God has given us. Remember, when we go forward, may the force be with you. That force is the God force. So I want to make it very clear to everybody that success into the future is not yours. Tomorrow is not promised. Tomorrow is a request. Therefore, we can't go forward without God. So when we talk about being proactive begins, strategy begins, sustainability begins, competitiveness begins, managing change begins with standing with God. So the future is achieved by today's actions, driven by positive spoken words. So my friends, this is my contribution for today in the context of preparing a frame for us to have a discussion where we want to understand what is strategy, we want to understand what is tactics, what's a business, what is business sustainability, how do we deal with change in market conditions. And we have looked at the budget of Trinidad and Tobago to see the actions taken by the Honorable Minister of Finance that is now the policy framework, the PESTLE, that will provide the opportunities and threats that we are going to face, but more importantly, the opportunities we are going to exploit. We are value exploiters. Our purpose is to produce value by coming up with goods and services that people want to pay value for. And it's from that exchange, from that transaction between you serving others, providing service to others, then you will have sustainability, profit, success, and prosperity. So this is my contribution at this point in time. I want to just thank everybody.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nurse, for your very thought-provoking and stimulating presentation. I will invite persons to ask questions. Questions will also ask as to whether or not your presentation will be shared after today's proceedings. Will they be, Dr. Nurse?
Oh yes, I'd be delighted to do that.
Okay, thank you. And to the person who asked about the recording, I just have to confirm with the technical person and then I will give you a response. So in terms of the many key takeaways that you brought to this evening's very delightful presentation, we have one, you need to apply the elements of strategic thinking, that it's foolhardy to think about bringing back the old time days because we are in a new era. In fact, you are indicating that we are at the cusp of where the space is now part of our economic ecosystem. And I will invite anyone who wishes to ask a question. You can just raise your hands or indicate. Come off mute and so indicate. Before anyone gets in, I just want to say that I was just struck by the fact that when I listened to the national discourse, I am not sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of understanding that we face a very significant challenge and that it will be very important to set down proper tracks so our grandchildren and our grandchildren's children will have it to run on, in a manner of speaking. And this was part of what, in fact, one of the persons on the chat, she was indicating, well, as you were speaking about the schools, well, the school feeding program will go by the way if you don't have children going into school. So I want to ask you, do you think that there is national alignment with the way that we are thinking now and going about our discussions in the context of the budget, having regard to the task that is ahead of us to shape like a new economy in a very short space of time?
Well, the answer is only, that's why this discussion this afternoon is so important. Because most people keep thinking, I'm remembering Lloyd Best. Lloyd Best said that we are in a plantation economy. And he described Trinidad and Tobago as a plantation economy because we all look to massa to give us our goods and services. And the word massa has been replaced by the government. And we had Dr. Eric Williams making a famous statement, massa day done. But the truth is, the state is still the major father, parent, taking care of people. However, the changes are coming because of these substitute technologies. So yes, the school feeding program was important when children were going to school. Yes, the transportation, paying children to go to, paying maxis to drop children to school was important in those rural areas. But today, with laptops in their homes, so what we should be discussing is how the ecosystem of the home can be redesigned to accommodate this new economy. But we can't go back to school feeding. There's no school to feed. We don't have the rooms, the space, the distance for COVID-19 in a school. So even if they want to open the schools can't open because the classrooms are too small based on the public health regulations. So in my respectful view, we need to have this conversation to wake people up to understand, hey, rain falling, it's today. If you are part of a school feeding program and you have a kitchen, think of how you could retool that kitchen to meet the needs of a new customer. Maybe you could distribute food to homes, because that's what restaurants have to do now. But don't think that what exists up to December 2019 is going to continue. School closed. The school buildings are empty. But school, the term has started and everybody in school at home. So education is still being provided, but not in that manner. The method is changing. And we must be ready for the changes in methods. That's my response to that.
So in terms of the extent of alignment then, it's almost as if we are being called upon to run and tie our shoelaces at the same time. So in terms of the national budget, would it be advisable for the government to continue with the obsolete economy, or are they not obliged as the largest employer to continue with the part of the obsolete economy until it can be shed in the future?
That's correct.
Cause a lot of social disruptions.
And that is what the government, the real third wave for COVID-19 is not the virus. It is the social economic dislocation, the protests and everything will come as people are now having to forcibly face the new reality. That's what's happening for us. The government is taking us in a transition phase. The Prime Minister has made it very clear. The port is going to become privatized. You hear all kind of people talking. But why? Because if we are going to do public sector, private sector partnerships, it has to be in areas that are earning. The port is an earning space. An airport or seaport are earning spaces. But we need to dredge our port. We need to put in new cranes and equipment, which we don't have the money for. So therefore, we bring a public sector, private sector partner who will run the port, and the government will withdraw from all these things, because governments have proven they manage inefficiently. So as we move towards efficiency, as we move towards the digitalization of our country, then the people who sit down and say, well, I want a job on the port as a stevedore to lift up things, those people are missing the point. That was a conversation 5 years ago. But in today's 2020 to 2021, and I want to remind everybody, we are in 2021. We are discussing the 2021 budget. And the financial year ended on September the 30th. So as far as the government is concerned, their 2021 started on the 1st of October. So we need to retool our thinking. Forget the January to December. Because if you start the new year in January, you are 3 months behind the government. So as it stands, my friends, the retooling of the society is being pushed in a gradual fashion, yes, because there's that transition space between the industrial world and the digital world. However, if you look around, you realize that if we take too long to move, we are going to be disconnected from the digital world, like how FIFA is disconnecting Trinidad. In other words, that is the choice we face. Either we get on board or we overboard. There's no support, there's no cry, there's no emotion, oh God, you must do it. You're either on board or overboard. And that is where all of us, to be sustainable, we have to stop looking back. Those who look back will turn to salt, but those who look forward and act in the forward will enjoy the sweetness of success. So that's my response to that, my dear.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nurse. I'm opening the floor to anyone to ask questions. There are some comments on the chat, and I'm going to read some of them. The challenge is that we have been existing Just get that comment back. The challenges that we've been existing in the 19th century and are expected to function in the 22nd century. A quantum leap is required, and we have to look at how the media can be used to fast track the living education like these conversations to the population, to fast track educating the population with conversations like these. And somebody else totally agree.
Well, there's a challenge to that. The challenge to that is that the media is not your friend. When we talk about the media is not independent. The media is a creature of the owners. So let's look at the TV in the morning. CNC3 is part of the Guardian Media Group, who control the Guardian newspaper, and they have their radio stations, and they are serving their interests. Turn the next thing, you're on TV6, which is the OCM Group, which is partly owned through the CLICO liquidation by the Honorable Minister of Finance. Just remember that, friends. So when we talk about the media, the next media channel is 7, which is TTT. And if you notice, the discussions as the same people as be talking, and they all have a political spin in what they say. Because to speak the truth to your country is to empower the people to understand that their power is in their consuming trends. If we stop buying from those people, and which I think is starting to happen, all who claim that they have their restaurant and they have their store, they're making money off of your consumption. The gamblers making money, the gambling places making money, the bars making money, the police making money, because they're making money off of us who are going out there and consuming without rationality. That is the message we need to tell our people, that we need to stop and use strategy. Think of what you're going to do with your money. Maintain financial literacy. Make sure that your total income is greater than your total cost. Be thrifty. Remove vanity. Buy what you need, not what you want, until you could afford what you want. Those are the principles that took my grandmother and my mother through the war in 1945 and brought me into the world. And these are the same principles that we need to remind our people about. But if you talk that on the radio or you talk that on the television, you will make enemies. So that's the challenge we have. But we need to carry the conversation, because you know why? We have a substitute to them. We don't need to go on CNC3. We could do it online.
Yes,
like
social media is the great equalizer.
Thank you.
Yes. What also struck me is the fact that I am thinking that there is so much to be done, but there are a number of people who are already out there, what we call the small and micro enterprises. And I think to a great extent, they have the potential to carry the country into the new horizons that you were speaking about. So I know the government has announced some sort of measures to help small and micro enterprises in respect of new technology. Do you think they should go further in order to accelerate our change into a more digital economy?
I think so, but I think the key element or value driver of that is the management aspect. The reason why 90% of small businesses fail is not because of the energy and the entrepreneurship or the idea, it's the management of the ideas. And what we are not doing, we are lending people money, but we're not training them how to spend it. We're not training them how to manage it. So with the government having these companies getting tax breaks for investment in technology, my position would be that these companies need to train people to be able to carry out their responsibilities to these small and micro enterprises, to lead them successfully and have proper corporate governance. Because I'm going to tell you something, there's no difference in corporate governance between a small business and a big business right now. The government of Trinidad and Tobago in the last administration passed the non-profit bill for churches and everybody. They passed the beneficial owner amendment to the Companies Act. They have passed the Companies Act and the Proceeds of Crime Act amendments. I'm just calling a couple of them for you to understand that regardless of whether you have a Lime home, a little treasury group, a little social group in the village council, and you are running a big business, you have to provide accounts. You have to provide data on your directors. You have to declare who the beneficial owners. In other words, all these things are the compliance requirements for good corporate governance, which has serious penalties. So in other words, for you to manage, be an entrepreneur, part of your learning is all the compliance requirements. And that's why they've asked for a compliance officer or a compliance function to be established in every business so that people learn how many things you have to do to be legal in your operation. So that's the challenge that small businesses have. These people don't have the education, they don't have the information and the support to be able to comply and compete. They could compete, but they don't comply. And there's a challenge there. That's the major challenge that small businesses face in our country.
So if one were to advocate for small businesses, do you think that government will be well placed to put in place like a small business? I hate the word incubator because they never seem to hatch, you know, like a small business fast track unit as a complement to the concessions that the government has put in place in relation to new businesses coming upstream?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't think about government at all. Anytime you think that the government will do it, and somebody asks, well, who's the government? What entrepreneurship is and what business sustainability is for us to recognize there's a need, which we have just done, and to see if we can provide for that need by providing training for these small business people. We need to think private sector. We need to understand the government is receding. The government is actually becoming irrelevant in a way. It's only because we're in the plantation economy where the government is such a large influencer that we take the government on. But when you go out into larger spaces where institutions and corporations run their countries, governments become irrelevant. And we need to think in that kind of way now. So if we want to establish a business incubator, which is an excellent idea, we need to think about if we could do it ourselves. We need to work with the non-governmental institutions. We need to work and harness that grassroots economy. We get these people in and we bring our brilliance onto them because they have the ability, they have the skills to function. What they don't have is the management skills to govern. So we've got to back them with the governance. And because technology has reduced the costs of doing that, because we are now in a position to discuss and debate and to train others, we have enough skilled people, some people who have retired, to be brought on board to mentor and coach these institutions to get them going. So it's not, anyway, the government could think about it, but when you look at the government's priorities, that may not be high on their agenda. But for us, we need to retool our people, retrain our people, and work through grassroots organizations to be able to build capacity for them to be successful. That is what I was suggesting.
I have a And here I'd like to read. Social media is a great equalizer. That is an interesting thought, but I also believe that there must be an objective and plan to what you would like to educate the population about. There must be an end game. It will take time, but do we have the discipline and fortitude to be consistent and send a message that needs to be sent? What do you say to that comment?
No, that's an excellent comment. Remember I talked about persistent analysis? The truth is the end game is content transfer. That's what the end game is. We need, the world is exposed to learning and knowledge, but it is not shared equally. So what the online systems have done is create a space where you could learn something on YouTube. It's free. You want music, you could get it on YouTube. In other words, lots of information and content that yesterday was held at a price or in a corner for selected individuals is now open. So really, what social media has provided is access, free access on your phone, free access in the convenience of your hand. I mean, one of the greatest things that I enjoy with my phone is being able to say, hey, Google, and she responds. And Google is able to give me information on anything that's on the net. That is what Alexia does. That is what Sophie, the robot, is doing in Hanson Robotics. So I agree with that comment, that social media is an opportunity, and how much time we have, we need to get up and get going quickly. We don't have time. We don't have time, friends.
I got the same sense that we don't have much time, and we're also running out of time on this forum. So feel free to post your questions or to ask your questions directly to Dr. Nis. I also have another comment about the use of cooperatives as a vehicle to help effect transformation, especially in the age of advancing technology and building the capacity you speak about by spreading the risk among the many. What do you say to that, the use of cooperatives?
I support that completely, because cooperatives, SUSU, and community is called joint development, it's called joint venture, it's called partnerships. In other words, it is the concept of we serving I, not I and I. It is about we becoming the ecosystem to provide a product or service to a customer. So what the cooperative movement has done, and as a matter of fact, the credit union movement has grown very, very powerfully, because it harnessed the grassroots people. Remember the 99%, the big challenge that the 99% has is they have been taught to believe that they're nobody. They have been taught to believe that they're only functional. They've been taught to believe that those who sit on top are better than them, when the truth is the pyramid is actually overturned. And the credit union and the cooperative movement harnesses the capability of the human capital and allows it to flow upward behind a force of an idea. The best example I could give you of a cooperative is a carnival band. 3,000 people going in the same direction. Wherever the flag go, the music truck follow. And there's a cooperation among everybody. They have unstated rules on how people behave. And that is, to my mind, an example of how the energy, that river of energy, that river of creativity, that river of passion, you see it flowing down the streets of Port of Spain. Can we harness that? The cooperative movement does that. But if we harness that properly, then the competitiveness begins to shift. And those who control the small groups of people, the parasitic oligarchy, to quote Prime Minister Pandey, that controls are not going to let it happen. So what they do, they divide and rule. That's one of the big challenges the world faces right now. Those who are in control of the world are not giving up control like that. And every attempt by the peoples of the world to rise above a certain level of achievement has been stamped out. Their leaders have been shot. Mahatma Gandhi brought people to independence, shot. Martin Luther King brought people in the civil rights movement, shot. President Kennedy signed the civil rights bill to put black people in schools, shot. Understand that those who control us want to keep things the way they are. And as the human DNA begins to shift into 2021, an era is new, a new era is emerging. You're going to see more technology, more monitoring, and more police, because that's the only way that they could control us for now. So we need to stop and realize the power of teams, the power of cooperation, the power of community, the power of leaders speaking with their families to take us in groups forward. That's what we want. We want to harness our consuming power. If the price go up in the gas station, I will change my vehicle to electric vehicle. I'm not studying them. That's how we have to think. If the price of electricity go up, I will hang out my clothes to dry, because that is what I grew up with. I didn't grow up with a dryer. I grew up with a line, hanging up the clothes on the line and putting the clothes out on the bleach. That's what I learned. That was using solar energy then. Wind for the line and solar energy on the bleach. We need to go back. Not go back in terms of reverse, but to go back to the things that were valid, that are still valid in this time. So now we talk about solar energy. Hello.
We've been doing that for some time.
Just what I'm telling you. When you hang out your clothes, when you pass by certain communities, I don't want to call names, but those of us who travel around the country must see it, and you see everybody with clothes hang out the window. It's because they're using sunlight and wind to dry their clothes. They have no dryer.
Yes, we quite understand all of these things. Like, we need to go back in order to go forward, because there were some things that we did perfectly right when we didn't understand that. But one of the things I wanted to ask about, Dr. Ness, is what do you see the role of UE and institutions, a lot of academic institutions, what do you see their role as being at this pivotal time in our history, in the economics of the world?
That is really an important question. And that's a question I faced in my doctorate. And let me give you the answers. The role of the academic community is to research and bring the new to our country. In other words, the books that you're reading are books produced by people in other lands. What happened to our people? Do we have research in our area? Have we done research on some of the medicines that we use, like Wonders of the World? Have we done research on ourselves? How many people in this country, and let me ask this question just for you all to think about it. How many people who are sitting in the group today know their great-great-grandfather? Just think about it. You have to answer me on thing, but I want you to think about that. You go back 2 generations. What do we know about those people? Which is our family? Where are they buried? What is their history? What is the history of Trinidad and Tobago? We talk about Rienzi. We talk about Eric Williams. But do you see any documentaries on them? Do you see anything being produced that reminds our children of where we come from? Part of control is to disconnect you from your history. And that is the role of UE in these places, because you have the academic brilliance, the people who are exposed to the latest journals. So research and reading is critical. In other universities, universities are research centers. So when you hear about pharmaceuticals or something, you will hear Harvard University have been given a grant to do research in a particular area, microbiology, whatever. So the university is a place where not only academics get degrees, but where academics do studies, they do research, and they come up with new technologies, new innovations that are aligned to this part of the world. So I think, my sister Sharon, that the universities have a critical role. Because in doing my research on project planning, what I did was I tried to find out why our infrastructure, public sector infrastructure, was always costing so much money and why things fail. Bottom line. And I did a longitudinal study. And when I went up to London, because I'm certified by the Anglo-Ruskin University, and I faced down the experts in my Viva, the question these people were asking me, they couldn't believe that there's so much greatness in our country. Yes, there were reasons why things fail, but the reasons why things fail is one thing, but I don't want to focus on the negative. Even though there were things that were failing, there are things that we do in our country, which is an example to the world. And the question the guy said to me is, you need to produce a book because you will be the only person with project planning with that amount of data. In other words, who does Caribbean research? What do we know about St. Lucia? What do we know about Tobago? When did Tobago become part of Trinidad? Simple questions like that. And then you begin to recognize that the universities are not putting out material. And even when the material is being produced, it is not being shared. But President Kennedy was shot, and every around this time of the year, you're going to see on History Channel the whole conspiracy being replayed for another generation. So we have been disconnected from our history, and our view of history is being tailored by people who are writing our books, who are not Caribbean people. Let's think about that. So I agree with you, Sharon. We need to do something to get our academics here to document, research and document. Each one of us have a story to tell. And we should be telling our stories. And because documentation is so much easier now, you could do a digital book, you could put it in pictures, you could take a picture of your grandmother and your great-grandmother and everybody and put them on a montage with a story behind it. In other words, we now have the ability to store data that your children and your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren or your great-great-grandchildren could see a lecture done by their great-great-great-grandmother.
Thank you for your response. But in relation to the issue of innovation, do you not think there's a greater role for UE to play, for example, in assisting in ensuring that the ease of doing business index, it becomes a reality, the figure that indicates that we are doing business smarter, better, faster? Is there not a role for them to play in the new economy alongside the role of recording or history, which is also very important? Similarly, institutions such as Anglia-Ruskin and the number of educational institutions, is there not a role for them to come forward together, perhaps as a cooperative of institutions, and say, okay, we are here to assist with this area of national endeavor because we are in serious times?
Well, I agree with you. And I think if you remember Professor Brian Copeland and the work that was done on the GPAN is one good example of what I would call innovation coming out of UE or coming out of, of UE in a broad sense. And we have, so there are, the responsibility of academics is to lead because they're the ones that are closest to the light. But see, we have become so comfortable with what is. We have lost our ability to seek and find. But what I'm thinking now is that these institutions, for them to maintain their relevance and to maintain their income, will have to go the way of research and development as an integral part of their product cycle. Because we need the innovators to come from the brilliant people around. And the brilliant people are the ones who are going to universities. And remember, there's also the University of Trinidad and Tobago, which is very vested in the energy sector and these technical things, right? So therefore, we do have the educational framework of skills and competences that can drive innovation. So each one of us, each strategist in their business, each one of us in our lives need to think about, can we produce or innovate? The guy who made Kentucky Fried Chicken was over 60 when he started to fry chicken in a little place. See, and that business is today what you all know it to be. So therefore, innovation is not constrained to academics. It's part of the inspiration that drives human capacity. So I'm inviting everybody to think of something that you would like to patent. Because once it's an idea that can be patented, it would be a product that can be produced for human consumption.
On that response, thank you, Dr. Nurse. I am thinking about two things: patenting that coconut bake on the fig leaf, the coconut bake being done in the dirt oven in Maruga.
Yes.
Our people are so talented, but I think part of it is our mindset. You spoke very early on about the need for us not to be reacting, but to spend our lives leading, because we have been very good at reacting. And we've been reacting, and we recognize others as leaders, but we do not recognize ourselves as leaders. We are leaders in our homes, we are leaders in our child's life, we are leaders at several levels. And I've been thinking about this whole issue about the internet and the fact that you have influencers, a one person mega empire. Look at what's her name? Kylie, one of those Kardashian young ladies who built a whole empire based on her persona, her pout, and lipstick, and her looks. So I am thinking our people have been trained so much to think about others as being leaders, but they themselves, in them, lie the core, the seeds of brilliance, the seeds of the innovation that is going to take us forward. And to me, in my mind, the national academic community has a responsibility to help foster that conversation along with the conversation that the economists would, because you would expect them to focus on GDP and those sort of other ratios and fiscal measures. But I think there needs to be a conversation about our people and their capacity. Someone needs to champion people into change. What do you say to that?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm totally in agreement with you. You see, the concept of championing is something that we haven't learned. We like to talk. I could sit with people but when it comes to action, you always hear the story. And until we stop saying that can't happen, in other words, you tell a man apply for a job, you say, me applying for the job because them have somebody for it already. So in other words, we actually cut our ability to be competitive, cut our ability to be innovative by starting off saying it can't happen. So, but what necessity is doing to us now, as patronage is being released from us, as subsidies are being reduced from our needs, as cost is increasing and jobs are decreasing, humans will find ways not just to survive, but to come up with the new ways to grow. In other words, we are being forced to be innovative. You remember how the pan emerged? It emerged because people came here without instruments, and all they could have done was beat a pan. When they beat an old tin pan, every time it begins to bend, the tone begins to change. And innovation coming from simple people were able to create your steel pan. And to make the steel pan happen, we built a pan rack, which is the next innovation we don't talk about. So I'm saying, I'm heartened, and I'm saying that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and this is my belief, are going to rise to the occasion, because they're going to recognize, that's the whole struggler group. They're going to look in the mirror and recognize their own power. They will recognize their capability to be strategic, because it is not just what people say to them, is what the inspiration inside of them will say to them. And we are at that point where solution thinking is the only way forward. What is the solution? What could I do? And is in finding the solution, we will find our invention. So that concept of the academics and the leaders, what we are doing here today is an example of that. But for that to go down to the ground, each one of us who have that understanding must pull our little family together and say, hey, this is the way to do it. We've got to share quietly in the family circles and get that message. You know what the Hindus call it? Panchayat. That's what they do. They sit around a table and they discuss. We need to go back to those things, so that the leaders who are lawyers, the leaders who are doctors, the leaders who are professionals, the leaders who have made it could now sit with their cousin and their brother and their sister who are still in the place of distress and teach each one, teach one. If I can help my brother along the way, if I can't help my brother along the way, then my living is not going to be in vain, because my family will grow and my education will now bring generational change. That's our mission, to change our families and make them more competitive and make their lives better by allowing them to use more brain power.
You're saying we ought to be having a national panchayat even now at the level of our families and at the level of the communities, fanning out into the national level. Perhaps when we call on radio station or make posts on Facebook and elsewhere on social media to influence, to add to the pool of ideas that are out there in terms of the national conversation.
Yes. Yes. Each one of us have to take that responsibility. Don't look for a messiah to do it. The last one came, we put him on a cross. That's the respect we have for people who lead correctly. But if each one of us takes that role to share and to support others, even in their weaknesses, instead of, I maintain words that heal, not words that hurt. Because words that hurt depreciate, destroy, and damage people. Your self-esteem, your sense of self-confidence. But when you use words that heal, you can motivate, you can encourage, and you can lift the spirits of others. And in lifting the human spirit, we are able to increase their capacity and energy to be successful. Sustainability comes when you believe that the future is going to be better and you can make it up. When hopelessness comes in, then suicide becomes attractive. So we've got to give our people hope. And to give them hope, we have to share the light of truth and knowledge for them to understand that we are going through a total change. This is a new era. This is a new world. You know when the last time that happened in the Caribbean? In 1838, when people woke up the next morning as freedmen. Yesterday they were slaves. Last week they were slaves. And in 1838, at the end of the Emancipation Proclamation Day, they woke up as freedmen. Think about that. What did they do then? They all went forward and created a new society of which we are proud to be a part today. That's what happened. And that is what we have to say now, that for the strategy for business sustainability and the tactics for business continuity begins with believing that your role in this relay of life is to add value that others will enjoy into the future. That's their purpose, that's the strategic vocation, and we've all got to be apostles in that order.
So the strategy and tactics also require alignment, a critical alignment of the human element to make it happen.
Yes, yes, yes.
On that note, I thank you very much, Dr. Nis. We only have a few more minutes. Because we promised to share the presentation, I omitted, and I'm really sorry. Could persons just post their email addresses in the chat if they wish to have a copy of the presentation? And Ms. James, could you indicate if the video, the audio of this session would be available as well, please? She has nodded yes. So once you put your email address, we will do the needful and get it on to you. I want to throw a challenge out to everyone in our last few moments of this forum, that understanding the gravity of what is before us, we've heard Dr. Nis and the main takeaways of what he's spoken about, that we need to apply the elements of strategic thinking at this time in order to successfully navigate the times before us. We can't be thinking about the old time days. We have to make choices based on the law of consequence. What we sow now will determine what we will reap in future. And the question is, what kind of future do you wish to set for your children right now? He also indicated that we need to change with the times and get to business sustainability and have organizational alignment. So we have to pay very careful attention to the structure that we are going to put in place. Will it endure? Will it bring confidence to our people and returns in the years to come? Will it be a business that will just survive, or will it be one that will sustain and grow? In other words, it will not be, to use your words, Dr. Nis, a zombie business, but a sustainable business. So in order to do all of that, we must make a quantum leap as human beings on this great island state of Trinidad and Tobago. We must be prepared to jump into the unknown, because it is said that the future is unknown, but there's also a school of thinking that says you can make the future. So it's not so much unknown. It's a question of strategic choices and tactics. We are facing creative destruction, but we also have a creative, innovative power within us that we were all born with. So my challenge to the forum is, would you be comfortable with the idea that we could perhaps share this forum, our views, our discussion, our discourse on a wider scale in order to inform, and I want to say infect, because COVID is such a bad thing, but to catch a fire, the thinking and the imagination of others, so we can, bring these other ideas to bear upon those who are making decisions. And I think all of us here, the fact that we're here demonstrates that we are leaders. We are ready for that challenge. So I'm throwing it out to you. Is this something that you all think we can do? Go with a wider forum and spread the ideas, encourage other persons to come in, because if you look at the newspapers on a daily basis, you have so many people who are doing innovative things throughout the country. So I'll leave you with that idea for now. But in wrapping up, I will hand over to my colleague, Diana James. Before I leave, I will thank you for your kind attendance.
Thank you, Sharon. It is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. So, Dr. Nis, we thank you for your time and effort that you have put into presenting for this forum. Thank you for helping us to better prepare ourselves, to strategize, to prepare for change. And thank you for sharing your knowledge so that we can further grow our community or build our community, as you stated in your final slide. Thank you to our guests, invited guests from the Rose Foundation and their chairman, Dr. Belgrove, who was our presenter in the last forum, Opportunities in Orbit. We thank you to all of you that joined us. Thank you for your comments. We look forward to seeing you in our next forum. Remember, the future is unknown, as Dr. Belgrove said, Dr. Nis said, sorry, but be ready to jump ahead of your competitors because you can be successful. Thank you once again for joining us.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much, everybody.
We leave the forum on for a few more minutes to let everyone get their email addresses in. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.